Here we go.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught! Jelani Woods! Touchdown! I-N-D-Y!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday, May 19th. Hope you had a great week. Ready for the weekend? If not, it's time to head in that direction, and that's where we're going. Appreciate you joining us here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this fine Friday. Another beautiful, absolutely Chamber of Commerce Day coming up. Don't forget, Indiana Sports Beat Radio is powered by Andy Moore Honda, where you get more to your door at andymorehonda.com, and the best in new and used vehicles. Make sure you go there anytime that is an option. And Endeavor Hospitality and their family of restaurants in and around the Bloomington area. Great places like BB's Market, your butcher, baker, no matter where you live. In addition to the brand new Chop Shop coming here just in a few weeks. June 1st, brand new steakhouse located right next door to BB's. They're on the south side, bringing something big time there. Appreciate you joining us. Welcome aboard. On to today's program, Alec Busse will join us from thehoosier.com. We'll get caught up on what's going on in the world of college basketball recruiting, specifically to Indiana, the Big Ten. Zach Osterman will join us as well. We'll talk about that and more. Todd Golden from CNHI is going to, I believe, up in Indy. So we'll talk to Todd from the track. See how things are going. The PGA is underway, and it's another event in which the LIVers are involved. And was Bryson DeChambeau the leader after the first round yesterday? Started. That's suspended PGA. Oh, I did not miss that. Well, hello, Bob Criswell from Georgetown. You know, I grew up in Georgetown. Let's see what else is going on. Oh, yes, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The ACC meetings wrap up. And they took place by coincidence on Anna Maria Island, Florida. That happens to be home of what famous restaurant that you know? Oh, yeah, the Ugly Grouper. So I'm quite certain that many of the meals that were had by these guys happened at the Ugly Grouper. So how about that? Getting you involved. Hello to everyone on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. We will talk about the combine and things like that later, as Brian is asking. But from all indications, it's been a good combine for those guys. How is everybody doing? What are your weekend plans like? It's also a Belmont weekend. Do not forget about that. The second leg of the Triple Crown in thoroughbred racing will happen from Belmont Park tomorrow. It's the Preakness. I'm sorry. Right? I'm getting confused. Tomorrow's the Preakness. Man. In Baltimore. That's where they use the Black-Eyed Susans, I believe. Thomas Bryant and the Denver Nuggets. And yesterday I mistakenly said that Thomas was still with the Lakers. Oddly enough, that's his former team. He was with the Lakers when LeBron set the scoring record. I'll never forget. Thomas Bryant was posted up down low under the rim, wide open, and it's like, yeah, like you're getting that ball from LeBron on that. That was funny. Michael, how are you, sir? The NCAA softball tournament begins today. Indiana taking on Louisville down in Knoxville, Tennessee. So there's that as well. Pimlico Racecourse, yep. The Preakness. Looking forward to that. So just to watching it. I hope Mades does it. I hope Mades beats all those newcomers. Those Johnny-come-latelys. And gives himself a shot at a Triple Crown. Would that not be crazy? But that the Belmont that I was talking about, the final race, which I believe comes in 3 weeks after this weekend, that's a marathon, man. That's a mile and a half. I mean, that's a long run. Long run for these guys. The NBA playoffs continue, as we just talked about, and someone mentioned that they were talking about Thomas Bryant and the Nuggets get the win, and they lead the Lakers 2-0, jumping up and out there with a lead. Sing songs about love. Wow, only an 8-horse field. Yeah, that not surprising, Brad. That's usually yesterday I was guessing that maybe 10 horses are in it. And so think of this, 8 horses. The Derby has 20, unless there are scratches. But think of 18 horses. 18 versus 8. Just the sheer size. That's part of why winning the Kentucky Derby is so hard. Everybody that can goes to the Kentucky Derby. Now you've got an 8-horse field, which very manageable for the Derby winner. So we'll see how that turns out. Could we have another horse going for a Triple Crown? We'll see. Anybody heading out to the IMS Motor Speedway this weekend? If you're in and around the Indiana area, should be an absolutely gorgeous time for that, as the track is open for business. Looking forward to talking to Todd Golden from CNHI. He's been up there covering that, and be joining him up there. Or not joining him per se, but making sure that we're up there next week. Looking forward to that. What are your plans for the weekend? It's a beautiful May. There's so much going on. Graduations are happening. This is the wedding month, big wedding month. You never has, this is the biggest wedding month of the year, right? Or is it I would think, although there's a lot going on. Russell says LeBron took a stumble. Yeah, they're down 2-0. That's definitely puts them in a hole against a good team. Brian asking, what do I think about Love if he will make the perfect fit for the last scholarship? No, I'm not saying he's a perfect fit. But I don't know that. I don't know what his attitude is right now. I don't know where he is mentally. I'm not saying it's a bad place or a good place. But if he's a player and filling that final spot, the coaches will ferret that out. And they'll make it clear what this is about. But if he falls within the framework of trying to win, that's a pretty nice piece to add. Just stop and think about that. You could have a starting lineup of Xavier Johnson, Caleb Love at the guards, Mackenzie Mbako on one side, Malik Renew on the other, Khalil Ware. I mean, which way do you go? You've got a lot of options here. Now, that's a team that would have depth. We talked about depth last year, thought that they had depth last year. We were wrong. That's a team that has depth that's pretty much proven because these guys have all played somewhere. Even down to Sparks. He played. Anthony Walker played in the Final Four. Russell thinks if Woody can corral X, he may be good for Caleb Love. Well, don't forget Caleb Love kind of has to be corralled. He sure liked to put the ball up. Kent thinks IU should stay away from Caleb Love. But most people that have these opinions are based on just what they've read, which don't put a lot of stock in that. Russell says, don't know what the tea leaves are saying about it, trying to find out, but not a lot out there in the universe. We Are His Universe by Coldplay and BTS. Good song. There you go. We've got to take a break. We've got more coming up. Alec Busse from thehoosier.com joins us. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. Todd Golden, CNHI from Indianapolis Motor Speedway today as well. Welcome aboard. Appreciate having you back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by BB's right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Good morning. Or hello, good afternoon. Hello. I did not say good morning. No, we don't say good morning on the show.
Oh, why is that?
Because it's not a morning show.
What is it?
Well, we're on radio at noon in most places.
How is that?
We record live, and then the show is carried.
Oh, okay.
But in Fort Wayne, it would be 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
But what's going on in the world of IU recruiting? Caleb Love, guard spot, yada, yada. Trip to Dallas. How was that? Damn, I'm losing another pin. Dead. Who all did you talk to down in Dallas?
Everyone I've gotten a story up this week on, and then Kion Anthony, which I'm getting a story published on today.
Cool. Talk about him. That's great. Man, that's almost, I don't want to call that an Indiana front runner, but Carmelo and
I don't
Gibson
think
are
they're going to
tight.
end up getting him.
You don't? But
No, Carmelo was a Nike/Jordan person.
All right, guys. We're going to go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday, May 19th. Hope you're having a great day. Beautiful Chamber of Commerce weather a day. Joined now by Alec Busse from thehoosier.com, who has been out and about getting all the tidbits on Indiana recruiting, Big Ten, whatever's going on out there. Last week was that in Dallas for the EYBL with tons of recruiting action going on down there. But right now, Alec, a little scuttlebutt about Caleb Love having committed to Michigan, but ironically, some of his credits from North Carolina would not transfer. Therefore, he is not allowed to enter Michigan. Not sure if that would have the same impact at Indiana, but because we know that Michigan's had that issue a few times before with guys not being able to get in to school there. But then the first question is Caleb Love an addition that Indiana would want?
I think it's a question that a lot of people are still asking. I don't know if it's something that anyone has a concrete answer to at the moment. I did some digging around yesterday and wasn't able to find any concrete answers. Even from like the Mizzou side, which is another program that was really interested in Caleb Love the first time around in the transfer portal. Sounds like Mizzou might be interested. Sounds like they may not be interested. It sounds like the same thing from Indiana's perspective, I think, from what I kind of understand. And I think some of that might just kind of be they're trying to do their homework now and see if Caleb Love can get into Indiana, like you said, as a transfer, or if he can't get into Indiana as a transfer, because there's no need for Indiana to waste their time and energy on Caleb Love trying to get to Indiana if it's not going to become a possibility. So I think we'll kind of see with time, but certainly it's an interesting idea for Indiana. To be honest with you, Jim, I don't necessarily think I would do it if I was Indiana. I'm not someone who is a Caleb Love believer. I never really have been. He was awful his freshman year at North Carolina. His sophomore year, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't necessarily good. And then this past season, his junior year at North Carolina, he was quite awful. And he obviously has been involved with some rumors about not being the greatest teammate, not being the greatest locker room piece, all those different things. Certainly it has really big hit potential where if he comes in and he makes shots, he's a good catch and shoot guy like he was his sophomore year, where he's in like the 94th percentile as a catch and shoot guy. It certainly would work for Indiana, I think, but there's also the huge bust potential where, you know, he's not making shots. He's putting up a bunch of bad shots like he did this past season in North Carolina. He's commanding the ball. He's not passing to open teammates. He's a gunner. And those are things that don't always jive well when you try and bring in a new piece to a team. So I think we'll tell in time if Caleb Love is something that Indiana ends up adding via the transfer portal or not. But it's certainly something that is worth monitoring.
Well, and then you have to look at the fact of having a ball-dominant player already in the fold, like Xavier Johnson, who will be controlling things. So that already sounds like a battle that would be coming up and something that you don't need when you've got the guys below them and around them. But again, that's to be feted out in with the coaches. Corey suggests that they're going to wait until the combine or draft, because there are a ton of guys already in the portal. There are guys that are in the draft that are going to be available. There are a lot of availabilities, and my stance on this for Indiana now is before they were chasing everybody for those spots. Now they are in a different position. They're in a driver's seat. They're going to be in a position where there should be guys wanting these spots now, because now it's kind of coveted from what they have built from a roster standpoint. I can't think of a lot of guys that would not want that final to be on that spot on Indiana's team with the roster they currently have.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see if Indiana even fills that last scholarship. You talked about like the fit aspect with Caleb Love and already having one or two guys who can handle the basketball. Obviously, that includes Xavier Johnson. I think Trey Galloway showed a little bit last year that he's capable of that in spurts. You're obviously bringing in two guards in this 2023 class with Gabe Cupps and Ja'Kai Newton, who can both handle the ball and kind of facilitate the offense. More so Cupps there than Newton, but it's kind of become common for coaches to leave a scholarship open just because there's not really a need to carry 13 scholarship guys. You end up not playing 2, 3, maybe 4 of them very much to begin with at all. And then they end up leaving and entering the transfer portal. So it's kind of a wasted scholarship. So I think if the perfect guy is out there or Indiana finds somebody that certainly fits what they're looking for with that last spot, that's an addition that they would make. But I think it's something that we still have to kind of see if it does get filled, or maybe they'll leave it open and they won't fill it. I think if they do make an addition, I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of player they do look to add. I would add more shooting, because right now you're kind of banking on a freshman to still make shots with Mackenzie Mbako, who, on the high school circuit in the high school game, he really showed an ability to make shots, but that doesn't always translate the greatest thing to college for some kids for some reason. The game's faster, the spacing isn't as great sometimes, so you kind of have to gamble a little bit on a high school kid making shots, and certainly Mackenzie Mbako is capable of that, but he is an incoming freshman, and then there's still some concerns about other guys being high-volume shooters. So if they are able to fill that last spot, I would expect it to be somebody who is a proven high-quality shooter at the college level, because I think that would really kind of elevate this Indiana team a little bit more and maybe put them a little bit closer to the likes of Purdue or Michigan State in a Big Ten title contenders conversation.
Yeah, well, Michigan State kind of stands alone at the top right now for me, but with the addition of Mbako, Indiana to me already stands at least side by side, if not ahead of Purdue for next season. I'm just not impressed by with what Purdue does. I think what they did last year was an anomaly, and the people that didn't get it figured out, like Indiana, will get it figured out. But that's another discussion for another day. Last week in Dallas, the EYLB event or EYBL event was going on. You were down there covering that for the Hoosier. A lot of names down there that Indiana is interested in, a lot of targets, and a lot of attention being paid. People like Dylan Harper, when Mackenzie Mbako made his commitment known. I know he made comments to rivals Rob Cassidy that he already committed. It was Indiana, right? He goes, I knew it. I mean, he didn't tell me or anything. I just assumed it was Indiana because Mike Woodson is going to put him in the best position to succeed and get to the next level. That's coming from a guy who is one of the top targets for next year. And that's exactly, if you're an IU fan or whatever fan you are, that's what you want to hear from a recruit.
Certainly. And I think one of the things I really heard when I was down there in Dallas was the involvement that Mike Woodson has in the recruitment of kids, which I think is a little bit unique. A lot of times around the country, you see college coaching staffs, the assistant coaches really lead the recruitments of kids. Then the head coach comes in late, and the head coach is the one who kind of seals the deal when a kid's on an official visit, or when the coaching staff is kind of really pushing for a kid. I kind of learned that Indiana does it a little bit differently. Mike Woodson's involved with the recruitment of a lot of different kids. Dylan Harper, you mentioned, he's involved there. Austin Swartz, someone else he's involved with. He's involved with Jaden Mustaf, another guard from North Carolina area that Mike Woodson's kind of involved with on the recruiting trail as well. So I think that's kind of cool. I think it's kind of unique. And certainly we've learned in the last 2-3 years that Mike Woodson's a pretty proven and successful recruiter. I think having a staff helps him in that area, obviously, but Mike Woodson's shown that he's got the ability to kind of step into a recruitment and really seal it for Indiana, and that's valuable to have a head coach who can do those things.
Absolutely. Who were some of the guys that stood out down in Dallas, and who in your conversations with them, how did those go?
Yeah, to me, the most impressive player by far was Dylan Harper. He's obviously a top 5 ranked kid in the class of 2024, which isn't regarded as being a super highly touted class, but Dylan Harper was really impressive. He's a left-handed guard, and he's certainly dominant with his left hand. He likes to go to his left, but his right hand is pretty capable. He's really good at getting to the rim. He can finish in the paint. If he gets a favorable matchup against a smaller guard, he will look to post him up on the block, which I think is something that is pretty unique for a guard who's 6'5", but he's got a good shot as well. He can pull the trigger from beyond the arc, even when a hand is in his face. But defensively, he's really tough. He's really impressive there. He's got active hands, forced a couple turnovers, a jump ball as well. In the game that I watched him play, I fell in love with Dylan Harper's game. So he is a guy that I think Indiana should really push for. Harper is from the New Jersey area. Rutgers is believed to be the favorite right now in his recruitment. And that would be the second 5-star that Rutgers has been able to land under Steve Peichel. So that would be a big get for Rutgers, but Indiana's kind of pushing. He's also got, I believe, Auburn, Duke, and Kansas along there in his top 5. So some good competition for Dylan Harper. But like I said, Rutgers is perceived to be the favorite, but I don't think a decision will be made until after Peach Jam, so later in the summer, potentially for a decision there. Austin Swartz is, like I said last week on the show, a player who I really like. He's been one of the best players on the UIBL circuit all summer. He's probably a top 5 or top 6 scorer in the entire circuit. He's averaging about 19.5 points, I believe, this summer for Boo Williams. He is a lights out, high volume, really consistent shooter, shooting about 39.5% from beyond the arc in UIBL. He made 6 of 7 for Boo Williams in their win over Paul George Elite, which was ironically right in front of Paul George, the actual player, because Paul George was there behind the bench watching his team play. And Paul George pulled him aside or said something to him in the handshake line, which I think is really cool for these kids when the NBA guys are there to have an NBA player kind of say something to them in the handshake line or pull them aside between games or whatever and give them a tip. And I know Austin Swartz was really grateful to hear that and really took the advice well. But Swartz is someone who I still think needs to improve his consistency off the bounce as a player, but he flashed a good bit in some other games getting to the rim. Got to work on the left hand, but the right hand is pretty effective there. He said that that's an area of his game where he's really trying to improve right now and finishing through larger players. And then there's some other guys as well. Obviously, Liam McNeely is someone that I think Indiana fans know pretty well. I don't think Liam McNeely is necessarily ever going to take over a game right now. I don't know if he's a good enough athlete to do that, but he's a really complete player. I don't think there's any one skill that he's elite at, but I don't think there's any one skill that he's quote unquote dragging in, I guess you could say. He's a solid shooter. He's a good rebounder. I think he could be a little bit more physical with his box outs, but he is someone who certainly has an intriguing game. I'd be intrigued to see if Liam McNeely is the type of kid who is really highly ranked and goes to the NBA draft in 2025 as a one and done talent because it's not a super highly ranked class of 2024, is it? Or if he's someone who stays in college and really kind of polishes his game a little bit more. But McNeely is obviously someone that
certainly, I don't see him as a one and done. And even though you make a great point with that being, man, if there was ever a year to try to make that happen, that would be the year. I'm just not sold that he is, because now you're gonna fairly or unfairly make the comparisons to Mackenzie Mbako because that's pretty much the same position. That's a position that he would fill, but I don't know that that skill level is definitely not at the same place. Which again, that may not be fair, but that's the level that Indiana has to rise to now. The level of recruiting that Indiana has to rise and stay at, in my opinion, to maintain what they're trying to build with this momentum and that level of players. But yeah, that's going to be something to see as continue to watch.
Yeah, and I think Texas is another school to really watch for McNeely. He's from Texas. He took an official visit, I believe, recently to Texas. Maybe it was an official. I know he was in Austin for a visit. He told me that he really enjoyed it down there. He said that the Moody Center, that's where Texas plays, was really impressive. He called it like an NBA gym. And as someone who has been there and seen the Moody Center, it's hard to disagree with him. The Moody Center is pretty sweet. It's brand new, several $100 million, I think, facility. It's an awesome arena. So Texas is certainly one to watch, but I think he's kind of waiting to see how teams play this upcoming season. He seemed to kind of want to observe how Rodney Terry plays things out at Texas's first year as the head coach full time in Austin. And then he also mentioned to me too that I think he wants to see how well Mackenzie Mbako plays at Indiana this year. He talked about how his goal is to get to the NBA, obviously, as it is all these kids. And he talked about how he was able to do how Mike Blitzman was able to do that with Joe and Hood-Schifino, but he wants to be able to see it kind of done a little bit more so, I guess, with some other kids before he really kind of commits or signs on to play for any specific team. So I do think the Liam McNeely recruitment is one that Indiana sits well in, but I don't feel like a decision is coming too quickly.
And Liam McNeely's not the only kid there at Montverde that has eyes for Indiana. Asa Newell is another one. So plenty of guys there. Anything else in the world of recruit? I don't know when Indiana will fill that spot, but I'm pretty confident they're not going to bank that scholarship for next year. I think that they fill it. I think that they'll fill it from somebody that's either waiting to come in or out of the draft. But we'll find out. But yeah, I think that they're gonna fill that spot. And again, now there are guys that want that position, as before Indiana was chasing these guys, but now they're landing them. From an NIL standpoint, you talked about Dylan Harper for next year. Rutgers is definitely a player in that. The one advantage, I don't think that Rutgers is in a position NIL-wise yet to compete with an Indiana. We'll find out. Maybe that doesn't matter, or maybe other things weigh out more so. But I don't think that a school like Rutgers can compete with Indiana from an NIL standpoint right now.
No, I don't know a ton about Rutgers' NIL situation, but it is kind of important to note that Dylan Harper's brother, I believe, is Ron Harper. So there are
Ron Harper Jr. Yes, who has
no
love lost for Indiana.
There are some family connections there to Rutgers, so I think that has something to do with Dylan Harper having some interest in playing for Rutgers, and then also like he's from the New Jersey area. I think he has an interest in kind of staying a little bit closer to home if possible. But yeah, look for, like I said, Dylan Harper and Rutgers seems to be the belief right now, but I know Indiana, Kansas are pushing, and Duke is as well. So as well as Auburn. I shouldn't just exclude Auburn from that mix. So Dylan Harper is a player who, like I said, was my favorite player on the circuit this past weekend. And to me, he was head and shoulders above everything else.
Russell asking about hearing about the new players and everything. Those guys won't get here until June. And then IU will start putting out all the marketing things of them running around in the sand and Coach Cliff working out with them and all the things they do together. So yeah, that'll get that, but we'll work on the other part of that for you. Alec, thanks a lot. Make sure you give Alec Busse a follow and go to thehoosier.com for complete coverage of Indiana recruiting and news. Appreciate you, man.
Yep. Appreciate you guys for having me on. Thanks as always. Looking forward to talking to you guys next Friday.
Absolutely. Have a great weekend. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Go Team. For those on the go, whether it's you, the team, the family, it's hard to find tasty, healthy snacks for those on that go. Go Team Bites are full of protein powder. They taste great, and you can pick them up at BB's Market or GoTeamBites.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Oh, yeah, he would be Asa Newell, and I think they're in as good a position for him as anybody. It all comes down to positions. Oh man, you and me both. But the chop block is going to be awesome. Yeah, I have to look at. You need a scorecard. Let's go over to let's see the Hoosier. They usually have schedule the. Okay, where's the scholarship chart? There it is. All right. So this is so he's gone. But this is for next year.
All right. We go live in 5, 4, 3, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. I hope it has been a good week for you, and you're looking forward to a great weekend. Hello to everybody, wherever you're listening from, or River Rats down on listening on 97.7 ESPN, The Ref in Evansville. Appreciate everybody down around there. Our fine folks up in the region, our region Rats. Actually, that's where we stole that name from, as you know. 12:30 a.m., 104.7 FM, WJOB, the voice of the region, and everybody in Chicago listening there as well. The fine folks that listen to sports all day on 1380 The Fan in Fort Wayne, and wherever you're listening from, YouTube, podcast, however, giant YouTube audience. We appreciate everybody. Don't forget, if you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at homepros.com. Never Lose Hoop golf outing. The date is finally set. I hadn't talked about it yet because we had an initial date and then found out there was another event, a schedule conflict, so we had to change it. July 20th. So now you have plenty of time to plan for that. That's a Thursday here at the golf club at Eagle Point. It is going to be a fun time for all. The Hulls Foundation started this. JC and Joni Hull started this back when JC was dealing with health issues, and now the foundation benefits area kids with cancer, dealing with cancer and their families. It is an incredible cause. And for those that play in the event and go to the dinner afterwards, you get to hear these families talk, and you see the difference that you get to make. And there's nothing better than that. And last year you guys were awesome with whole sponsorships and various things. And I have finally, I'm gonna blame Jordan for this, but finally I promised the people who took on the whole sponsorship last year that they would get a picture of Jordan holding their sign. Finally have those. So I'll be getting those sent out. But if you're wanting to play, it's going to be a blast. I'm trying to quickly get over to pull up the daggone website, but I'll have to go find that through later. John said he was listening to Locked On Jayhawks, and the guy was wondering why Mbako would go to IU as he would be behind Race. first of all, I don't know how. Well, he may have. Mike Woodson may have. Would Mike Woodson have put him behind Race Thompson? No. I no way. And that's hard for me to say because anyone that disagreed, I don't have a great argument for you because he has proven that he prefers his experienced players. But with the value of that win, that's as big as Jalen Hood-Schifino. Jalen Hood-Schifino was going to be started. You don't bring an Mbako in and him not start. So I think he would have started over Race. But they have a solid argument. But you're right. Poor research there. And not only that, well, it's because I think that's just some series somebody put together and they find anybody to do it for those schools. So that's why you have to watch what you listen to. Mbako is going to be a player. He could have went to a team that was not guaranteed. No one's guaranteed to win a national championship, but I guarantee you one thing, Kansas is guaranteed to win next year. Probably going to win the Big 12 conference. They're going to be a top seed, guaranteed. Now, is Indiana looked at someone that's probably going to win the Big 10 conference right now? Nope. Not even with the addition of Mbako. Are they someone that's thought up to guaranteed to have a high seed? Nope. Not saying that they can't, won't. But he came to Indiana because he is going to be a part of potentially making that. And that was, we didn't know before the decision what his thinking was. Does he just want to go be a part of something that anybody could join, or be a reason for something? He wasn't going to be a game changer there. Not that his abilities are any less, but he was not going to be a game changer at Kansas. He is a game changer at Indiana, but it's not just for now. It's that has ramifications that I've talked about, that Indiana had to win those battles. Now they're winning them. And that's momentum, people, and that's what you have to have. Get that ball rolling downhill. Keep it rolling. Appreciate everybody as well on the following us on YouTube. I know that those that can't always listen live get to listen at their leisure, and that's great. While you're doing that right now, hit that subscribe button if you haven't, the notifications toggle, and the like button. And if you're a Twitter person, give me a follow at Jim Coyle ISB so you can keep up with everything that's going on from us. As our content comes from all over, man, we try to bring it to you. We'll be at the IMS, out and about, having people everywhere. Just spoke with Alec, Busse. He was down out in Dallas last week. That'll continue over the summer as well. And anything else that's going on in the sports world. I mean, we like to bring you all the Big Ten action that we can, Indiana action, Purdue, whomever it is, but like to branch out as well. Oh, yeah, here's something. I got to get over to this. The National Labor Relations Board issued a formal complaint. This is big. This is the start of something. NLRB has issued a formal complaint against the NCAA, the Pac-12 Conference, and USC over unfair labor practices. That was yesterday. That's an expected but a formal step towards the possibility of some college athletes being deemed employees. Some college athletes. A hearing on November 7th will put lawyers for the three parties and the NLRB before an administrative law judge. Here we go. Now it starts. In February, the National College Players Association, that's, what's that guy's name? I have to pull him. He's been on the show before, which that's amazing because I didn't think that they really had a lot going on, but man, maybe they do. Maybe they got some sway. Anyway, they filed an unfair labor practice charge to the NLRB against the NCAA, Pac-12, and USC as a joint employers of FBS football players, men's basketball players, and women's basketball players. So these are only for three sports that right now. The National College Football Players Association is an advocacy group led by former UCLA football player Ramaji Huma, who previously helped Northwestern players push to form a union in 2015, if you remember that. That was eventually dismissed by the NLRB. The Players Association also pushed for NIL state laws, which began in California. This process will prove that these athletes are employees under labor law and are entitled to all rights and protections afforded to other employees in America, Hoomer said in a statement Thursday. The NCPA will continue to fight to ensure college athletes have equal rights. Okay, that sounds great, but do you have any idea the Pandora's box that that's going to open? If you think college sports has been changed, now that's nothing. What has happened prior to now is nothing compared to that. It's just going to, it may affect some schools in such a negative way that they can't field certain sports. I guess I'm torn on it because here on one side, I'm always saying that, yes, I agree, Kent. It is just the tip of the iceberg. You know, I'm on record as saying there absolutely needs to be contracts between these kids that are getting these great NIL deals, which I'm fine with. But you can't just jump around because a better deal comes along without having a commitment. And my reasoning for that is it affects the greater, I don't want to say the greater good, but it affects the overall the product. It affects the sport in a negative way. The overall sport, the impact is too negative. So that's why I believe that there should be some kind of contractual tether. Not sure where they go from that, but this is the start of that. I mean, it's the beginning. And like I said, this is much bigger than NIL. Hell, NIL's easy. They changed the rule. Okay, everybody can be paid. How far does this go? Are you really going to be able to limit it to just 3 sports. Then the schools that play football but are not in, all right, look at a school like Indiana. If they were not in the Big Ten, if they had a program that was not good, but we're not in the Big Ten and we're not paid $50 and soon to be $100 million a year to offset all of that, I'm not sure that they could survive. So there are going to be ramifications across the board on this. We'll talk to Zach Osterman about this when he joins us later. Is it good or bad? What are your thoughts? Now, before you just go and fire off an answer and fire off a comment, and I appreciate all the comments that come from people that are listening that don't have the opportunity to listen live, and they comment on YouTube, whatever. I try to respond to those, but there's a lot. But take time to think about before you respond to this, because how is what they do different? You got to get off of this mentality of living in the 80s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Doesn't matter. You got to get off that mentality. You know why? Because go back to the 90s and then think about how things were done in the 50s. Big change. Big changes. Change comes, man. It's part of life. Now, these are massive changes, and they're having massive effects. But they're not going away. The only thing that can happen are guidelines, guardrails, judgments, and this is going to be a huge judgment. But I'd love to hear people's responses, but stop and take a minute to think. Don't respond with that old mentality. Be smart, think about it. And let me know. But I mean, you have to realize, I don't think the general person does not understand how much time, let's say, a football player devotes to being a football player every day. The amount of time. It's not far from being the same amount of time as a job. That doesn't include the time they have to put into school, etc. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Appreciate you being with us on this gorgeous Friday, May 19th. Brought to you by our good friends from Barber Pop Real Estate Services. Those of you down in the Louisville, Southern Indiana area are planning to move there. Well, you need Barber Pop. Reach out to her, Barbara, at barberpop.com, or our friend Matt at barberpop.com. They've served those communities for 3 decades, and they are a big supporter of ISB Radio. Support those who support you. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Jim, I'm really interested in that because I saw that bill yesterday, and I haven't done my due diligence, but
Well, do it, and you could have chimed in, baby. I got a guy I'm hoping to have on next week.
it's very interesting. he's still talking to me. I cannot hear him at all. Gotta love him.
I was just saying, fuck her off.
Love that energy, Jim. All right, when you're ready, we go live in 5, 4,
Where?
3.
No, Zach.
No, he hasn't popped on yet.
You might want to text him.
Okay, I'll have to text John, but I'll do that, and you go live, and or I'll text John first, then we can go live. All right, I guess I texted John, and hopefully we can get a hold of him, but I guess we have to probably go live here. And
Well, because you'll have to edit this, tighten this up a little bit.
I will, or I can wait and just cut this out if you want me to.
Well, you'll have to for radio. I mean,
Well, of course, but I mean, do you want to go live or do you want me to wait?
well, yeah, we can't just wait.
Okay, we go live and
No, he's coming on.
okay.
He's coming. So you can go ahead and fire away if you want.
Okay. We go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Speed Radio here on this Friday. It's May 19th, and it is gorgeous outside. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star joins us next. Plenty to talk about with Zach as things are staying busy. Even though we're in the off season, a lot going on. The PGA is underway. I believe Bryson DeChambeau, did he not have the lead yesterday after day one? PGA. See what that current leaderboard. Yep, and he's still there. How about that? Bryson DeChambeau, another liver. Who ended up winning? Didn't Brooks Koepka win the Masters? I can't remember now. I'm drawing a blank, but I know he was leading, and because that was the big thing. The livers, they can play in these major events. What if they sweep the majors? What if the livers came and swept these, and that's of course I can't remember if he was able to hold, if Koepka was able to hold on. I can't recall it. I should, because I won money on that. Joined now by Zach Osterman, our good friend from the Indy Star, IU inside reporter, as well as overall just great sports reporter. Zach, I hope you're having a great day. How are you going, man?
I can't complain. How about you?
Same. The weather is looking incredible. It's a beautiful May day here in Indiana. We're in between the Derby. You got the 500, but the festivities have already begun up there with the track being open. The practice is underway. You've got college basketball, of course. But something yesterday that with the complaint with the NLRB filed that against the NCAA, the Pac-12, and USC, kind of like, is this the start of college athletes becoming employees? At least some of them.
Possibly. This is, I think, one of the ways that people have thought it might happen. And it's this stuff can get confusing. And I've talked to students who've been writing stuff about this for class projects and things. And it's really easy to kind of get your streams crossed. Like, for example, I think a lot of people equate the Alston Supreme Court decision with NIL, when those two things aren't really the same. They sort of live in the same neighborhood, but they didn't directly affect one another. The NLRB actually issued a memo, and this kind of, I think if you weren't paying close attention, and I'll Google this while we're talking just to get firm dates on this. The NLRB issued a memo in September of 2021, basically saying essentially what has now been alleged in this complaint, that this is from the NLRB website. General Counsel Jennifer Abruzzo issued a memorandum to all field offices providing updated guidance regarding her position that certain players at academic institutions, sometimes referred to as student athletes, are employees under the National Labor Relations Act, and as such are afforded all statutory protections. This all, if you think about, like, this was what, less than 3 months after NIL became law. This was, I think the Alston decision was handed down, I think, in June of 2021. And so the point is, there'd been lots of stuff debated in Congress, and I think this kind of went under the radar, I guess is my point. The NLRB, it's worth saying, is an arm of the executive branch of government. And I think that's interesting, largely because you kind of had three separate challenges from all three branches of American government to NCAA statutes. You've had state legislatures, you've had the Supreme Court in the Alston case, and the NLRB was the executive side of it. The point is, this was kind of, I don't want to say it was coming, but like this had already been out there on the wind for about a year and a half. I think it had just gotten a little bit less traction because it was not quite so, big headline, maybe in some ways. A memo's not quite the same thing, in terms of what's glitzy or what's sexy as a Supreme Court decision, for example. And also because this kind of came after a couple, the Alston decision's in June, NIL becomes law in July. And so this sort of is it walks a path that's already been well paved. And I think a lot of people missed it. But my point here is, this is a rambling kind of answer. My point here is, this had always kind of been out there in the ecosystem. This wasn't something that just happened in the last month. This isn't like the Biden administration just decided after, the end of the first quarter of the year that they were going to pursue this. the NLRB has been around on this for a while, and the NLRB is who you would go to if you had issues, for example, with workplace health conditions and things like that. When we think about athletes' previous attempts to unionize, the NLRB would play a big role in either the approval or the denial of that sort of thing. So to your question, is this a step toward athletes becoming employees? It's certainly one, I think. Now, obviously, for the moment, this is confined, and it is worth saying the NLRB memo from 2021, it says certain players at academic institutions, and it doesn't firmly define that, but I think there's kind of a lot of there's a lot of sort of smoke around it that says that the athletes that are like making millions of dollars for the universities maybe are treated a little bit differently than the athletes in the non-revenue sports and things like that. But I think as we've seen through this whole process of the last 2-3 years, and so much of this kind of happening, once you get the ball rolling, it's not hard for that to suddenly it starts with just sort of I think an issue here is the NLRB alleging that football players at USC are employees of Southern Cal, the Pac-12, and the NCAA. So for the moment, it's kind of narrowly defined. But if this gets to a certain point where the NLRB is sort of proven correct or certified or whatever you want to say, it's not hard to imagine that branching out quickly. And so this is just another way in which, we're kind of seeing institutions of government pick away at NCAA policy and just sort of chip away at it.
And not only that, and there is some protections for athletes, student athletes, of course, but I guess the bigger concern is the Power 5 schools. They're all mostly going to be able to withstand that. But you look at a conference like the ACC, who is not football heavy right now, or a conference outside of the Power 5 that has a lot of teams. I'll use Indiana for an example, who is not a good football school. They get their revenue from basketball, but if they were in a lesser conference that did not receive the funds that they get from the Big Ten or whatnot, it could be very, very jolting to them. But I'm wondering about the effects down the road on what this could do to a lot of different programs if it was actually implemented.
Yeah, I mean, I think there, and this is where you start to lose me a little bit in the weeds of labor law, and I think for example. If you read the second paragraph of that memo from 2021, it says the memo further advises that where appropriate, Jennifer Abruzzo will allege that misclassifying such employees as mere, quote, student athletes and leading them to believe they are not entitled to the Act's protection has a chilling effect on Section 7 activity and is an independent violation of Section 8A1 of the Act. Now, this is referring to the National Labor Relations Act. Which it guarantees the right of private sector employees to organize into trade unions, to collectively bargain, to strike for better working conditions. It's worth saying that to remember. And again, I will admit that I'm swimming in deep water when we start talking about the nuances of labor law. But I think, when we talk about this and we talk about what the NLRB sort of is tasked with governing, for lack of a better term. I don't think we're necessarily talking about I don't believe the NLRB is who would step in and say, you've got to start sharing revenues, for example. It would be more about the ability of athletes to unionize, to collectively bargain, to be treated like employees that can demand things like, workplace injury related compensation, long-term medical health benefits, things like that. things that at times you talk about the athletes do have some rights, and the NCAA, to be fair, has come back on some of these things and has promised more of these things as time has gone on. I think just a few weeks ago, the NCAA passed some I think recommended some reforms around basically long-term medical care provision for athletes. Basically, that if you suffer injury while you are playing college sports that affects you in later life, the NCAA will provide medical assistance. But this is more, I think, this is less about these sort of like salaries, benefits to athletes, so to speak, and more about kind of the workplace rights of athletes. What do athletes feel like they're being taken advantage of? Are they being made to practice in unsafe conditions? Are they being made to practice longer hours or with less, what is the word I'm looking for? With sort of less regard for safety than they think they should be. Because at the professional level, all this stuff is protected. You negotiate all these things. When we talk about, like in the NFL, for example, OTAs and rookie camp and mini camp and training camp, and you're going to play this many preseason games and you're going to have this many scrimmages and you're going to do this. So much of that stuff is negotiated in collective bargaining agreements between the NFL Players Association and the league, and that's true of baseball. That's true of basketball, and those things obviously don't directly involve money. What they are more about is just safety and sort of athlete welfare, for lack of a better term. And so that's, I think, where more of this would come into play. But all these things, as we know, layer on to one another. And I think Mo wants in the frame here. All these things layer on to one another. And if an institution of the executive branch of the federal government declares that we now need to regard certain individuals as employees, it's not a long journey to someone saying, well, if they're employees, they need to be salaried and they need to have benefits like vacation time, like a pension or a 401k or whatever it is. And again, this is where you lose me in the weeds, and you'd lose a lot of people in the weeds, because as we saw with NIL, this whole structure doesn't exist. We would have to create it out of, we know what it's like to make someone an employee, but we would have to create a structure that would fit college athletics as an industry. But I think that to my observation here, the bigger sort of thing at play is this is the NCAA, or this is the NLRB saying it is willing to recognize athletes as employees. And that is another step toward, again, salaries and revenue sharing and all those different things, even if the NLRB specifically isn't necessarily going to do that itself.
And then we'll wonder if they will get involved in the promises. We've heard so much of false promises being made to athletes, and or they'll let that just be a self-governing process. A lot going on right now with recruiting, Zach, with the Indianapolis 500. Big weekend. Are you getting out at all?
I won't be at the track this weekend. I'll be doing some of the soccer stuff, the soccer 50th anniversary. They're having a big celebration for basically the 50th birthday of IU soccer becoming a varsity sport. I think I'll be up at the track a little bit next week, but yeah, the soccer, and then I guess to some extent baseball watch too. I know they're now a game behind Maryland, so they're going to have some ground to make up and not a lot of time to do it. But the possibility of baseball winning the Big Ten, or at least a share of the Big Ten, if it can catch Maryland this weekend. But it's tough because Michigan State. Maryland is playing as I think we saw yesterday, as a pretty bad Penn State team. And if I'm not mistaken, Michigan State is fighting to get into the Big Ten tournament. So. You're kind of in a place where if you're Indiana, you probably would have rather been playing Penn State. And that's, if anybody here's a Penn State baseball fan, I'm not, I'm not trying to start a fight. I just, it's kind of one of those situations where, you probably had the harder road to hoe this weekend. And so far that's proven true.
Zach Osterman from the Indy Star. Enjoy your weekend. Appreciate you, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You bet. We'll be back with more. Todd Golden joins us from CNHI right after this, brought to you by our good friends from Metalworks Brewing Company. You can find them right off the square in Bloomington on 6th Street or at any of the Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hello, Senior Todd.
What's up, Jim?
Welcome to your first appearance.
I know. It's my maiden voyage. I'm happy to be doing it.
So you're home. You're not at the track today.
I'm going to be leaving for the track soon. The last loose ends. I was having my crawl space encapsulated. That's a big job.
Well, if you want somebody to go with you, I'd gladly go.
Well, it'll probably have to be tomorrow or Sunday because I got a few other things I need to tie up there too. So, but
yeah, I got to pick up my credential. I haven't picked up my credential yet.
Today's going to be a pain because it's supposed to rain later. I mean,
tomorrow's fine. I'm in no whatever.
Tomorrow would be okay. I'll have to see what the sky. I mean, I'm not going up early tomorrow. I mean, I'll be going.
It does. I have no schedule. It doesn't.
Okay.
I would be like, whatever works for you works for me.
Okay, we'll work it out. So
I'm just more importantly about getting my credential before, carb day and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah. It doesn't seem like there's as many people there this year, but then it's early. So as years past where I've been there. So
how's it been?
You know what? It's been kind of blasé this year. I mean, there's nothing. I was going to mention it if you had asked me about it. I was going to mention it. There's nothing really there's no new engine this year. There's no new like an aero screen like there was a couple years ago. The only change within the cars is there's a little bit more downforce. There's no changes to the track. There's not some glamorous driver coming in and doing a one-off. It's
won't they have a little more speed with more downforce, a little more speed?
I think that's the hope. And certainly speeds have been up there. But it's, there's not now next year, there's new engines coming in. So that'll be interesting. But in terms of hybrid engines, but this year it's been kind of there. It's stability or stasis, depending on how you want to look at it. Probably more stability than stasis, to be fair. But so we're kind of waiting and seeing. So far, Ganassi has dominated the speed. So we'll see if that holds up. Today, the boost goes up. They're in qualifying trim, so that'll be interesting.
How long have you been covering the Indy 500?
I've covered it off and on since the late 90s. I think this is I haven't covered it every year because Indiana State athletics, baseball in particular, especially in the last decade, would often pull me away from it. But I think this is my 8th or 9th one, something like that. Now, I've covered all the other stuff, too. I covered most of the Formula One races there, covered a lot of Brickyards, even covered the MotoGP when it was there a couple times. So I know my way around the track. It's Indy very often, when I was in my early days, you'd have prep stuff you'd have to worry about that would get in the way of coverage of that. But these days, this is the first time I've done the whole month in a long time where it was my primary duty for this for May. So it's been, in that sense, it's been fun.
Well, if I can get up there 2 weeks in a row to do the show, I will. I'm definitely going to plan on doing the show up there Carb Day. You'll be up there all day for Carb Day, right?
I will be, and that's the one thing I've never done. I've never done Carb Day. I don't know how.
I've been there once, and this was back, but this was so long ago. This was in the 90s, and it was when they had it on a Thursday.
Okay.
That's how long ago
they did do that for a little bit, didn't they? Yeah. For me, I was always high school stuff got in the way because that's when baseball sectionals or softball sectionals or something like that was always got in the way of me doing Carb Day.
Looking forward to it. You can be our Indy specialist.
I could do that. I do follow. I mean, I follow it as a quote unquote as a fan too. I mean, I do watch them, and
I don't follow it enough as a fan. I know more about NASCAR, although that's not nearly as fun to follow anymore.
Yeah,
with all the changes they've made.
I've fallen out of love with NASCAR. I used to be pretty fanatical about that too, but
there are no stars, and the cars. I'm kind of, I guess, the cars they're more durable as far as like hitting the wall and or there's somebody bumping you where it used to just cut your tire and you're screwed. That doesn't quite happen as much, which I'm not opposed to that, because that sucked just to get a fender rubbed and to see someone lose a stinking tire, you sometimes spin or whatever. But there is the fun. Ross Chastain, him alone is making this thing great because he's pissing everybody off.
Where I lost interest, the chase started it way back when. That's 20 years ago now. I always liked the fact that NASCAR was a marathon. Where if you won the championship, you truly did something over the long haul. Now, once in a while, you get a driver dominating, and it got a little boring at the end of the season. But I liked that aspect of it. And then I really hated the lucky dog rule too. I just thought it was cheap. Now almost every series does it, but that started it. And then I just thought the racing itself got a little bit boring over time. I mean, it's
RC. How much time do we have?
I'm going to cut the light behind me, Jim.
RC, how much time do we have? Where the hell did he go?
7:10.
No, I meant to start this segment.
Oh, we started just like 3 minutes. We were just like 2 minutes off or 3 minutes off. We're on time.
So you're ready to start is what I'm asking you.
Oh, yes. We go live.
Okay. Give me a countdown, please.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. I hope you are ready for the weekend because we're going to get you revved up. Welcome aboard, Todd Godin, a good friend from CNHI. As a matter of fact, he took K-Bro's spot. Too bad K-Bro's not on today. That's our rap. That's Kevin's. That's his man. RC, we've got as fill-in producer today, so I don't think he can throw up the K-Bro picture. I wonder if I can find it. There is a lovely. Oh, I think I'm gonna be able to find this. It's this one.
Oh,
what's up, K-Bro?
Nice.
Yeah.
K-Bro in the house.
So
I don't think I've heard. That's the first time I've heard him referred to as K-Bro.
It's because we gave him that moniker.
I'm going to start calling him K-Bro.
Everybody does on the show. Plus, I wish he would have been on this week because the Mets and the Reds played, and the Mets did not fare too well. And then Big Robert just pointed out my Mets are playing the Yankees now, so maybe they'll. Who knows, man?
You're a Mets guy?
No, I'm a Reds fan.
Okay, I was going to say.
Unfortunately, right there. See it over my shoulder.
Oh yeah, there.
Over my left shoulder, right there.
I got jealous watching you and Zach because both you guys are wearing hats, and I noticed Zach was duded up in his braid stuff. I have a hairline that needs to wear a hat on Zoom. I didn't want to, but believe me, I'll be donning some caps. I'm a Brewers guy, so I'm going to bring that to the broadcast.
Well, see, now we got it. That's new. We've got Kyle Nedrip is a Detroit Tigers fan. Let's see. I'm trying to think who. Oh, Rick Bozich, big White Sox fan.
Yep. Yeah, he is.
We got a bunch of losers right now, which is great, except for Zach, who's got his Braves, the always winning Braves. But
well, now
we'll see.
The Brewers are the tallest.
Well, the Brewers are right there
in the NL Central right now. So that's probably the kindest way I could put it. They're not playing very well. Unfortunately, they're letting the Cardinals back in it, which is infuriating to me. But
what do you mean letting the Cardinals back? Are they not last still? Do they move up above my Reds?
But they're. I think they're only 6.5
games back. Yeah, it's.
I mean, they were buried there for a bit, and now they're the zombie is walking around again. So I don't care for it.
Todd, with CNHI, as I said, which is a conglomerate of Indiana papers in and around the state, places like Terre Haute, Jeffersonville, Anderson, great communities that they fill the sports Indiana sports world with. He's been down covering the Indianapolis 500. Of course, he also covers the IU Hoosiers. We were talking earlier about the recruiting and Indiana lands Mbako, which really is an impactful recruit. Now they have one spot left, and I think that they are in great position to let that spot be filled instead of having to fill it, so to speak. So they're in a much, much better position now than they were, and I think that they're going to end up coming out of this with a roster that, to me, will – I'm still going to put Michigan State at the top of my thought. I'm not going to call it a prediction because I'm out of the prediction business, but at my presumed heir apparent going in, I do not see Purdue being better than Indiana at this moment with this roster, especially knowing that they're going to add an experienced guard. But we'll see how all that goes. But they pretty much have hit home runs with the recruiting this year, a top 10 recruiting class, Todd.
Yeah, I mean, it's Mbako was much needed in that regard. I feel like, all of the hype that he comes in with is deserved. I mean, he's productive. He's exactly what they needed in terms of a stretch forward that could shoot the ball a little bit, gives them something they really didn't have last year. They needed it. If he hadn't come, then you would have been kind of hunting around looking for whoever could be there to kind of bridge that gap. And now that he's bridged it, Indiana's in pretty good shape. Be interesting what they do with that last scholarship. I know, Caleb Love keeps getting mentioned as a possible candidate. I am on the fence about him, but certainly they put themselves in a stronger position, and more importantly, demonstrated to future classes and future recruits that they can build a program that brings in big fish like Mbako. So that was pretty important for Mike Woodson at this stage of his coaching. And yes, Indiana certainly is a top half Big Ten team next year. You say you're out of the predictions game. Predictions are hard to come by these days. The portal makes predictions kind of a fool's game. I mean, typically you predict on what you know, and we really don't know much about the composition of all but a few teams, how the chemistry is going to work out and all that. Who knows what Illinois is going to be like next year, for example. So, but we do know that Indiana has an experienced point guard. We do know they have a good defensive guard in Trey Galloway to go with him, and who can also do some things offensively. And we do know they have a rebuilt front court to go along with a pretty great true freshman. So Indiana should be in good shape.
Absolutely, and looking forward to that. You have been up at the track covering the Indianapolis 500 as it has gotten underway, the beautiful month of May. And what a month. We've started off with the Kentucky Derby. Tomorrow we have the Preakness in Baltimore, and practice going on. Qualifications will be coming up. Carb Day will be happening, and then the running of the 107th Indianapolis 500, which hopefully will have, man, if the weather stays like it is right now, this is optimum race weather.
No question. I mean, the last 2 days of practice were perfect in terms of not too hot, not too cold, a little bit breezy, but not so breezy that you come into, one of the short shoots and you get blasted by a gust of air. I actually asked a couple of the drivers that yesterday. I mean, do you want it to be optimal? It's kind of counterintuitive. I mean, you can never guess what the actual race day weather is going to be. I mean, the very extended forecasts seem to indicate it's going to be hot on race day this year. So does it lull you into a false sense of security when you have perfect conditions? Well, that's probably overthinking it a little bit. I mean, you want to have good data to work with, and that's what the teams were able to get accomplished in the last 2 days. Of course, Tuesday's practice was rained out, but so far, Chip Ganassi Racing is the one who's been the most stout, and that's of course no surprise. They've been, one of the best teams for a couple decades now. So we'll see. The Busse gets turned up today on Fast Friday, so that'll be interesting to see who looks good in qualifying trim, and we'll see what happens tomorrow when they fill the field up to 30, and then they do there's one car that can be bumped this year. So, and the one car that you might think might get bumped has been pretty competitive. RC Enerson is in a part-time entry, but so it'll be interesting to see what happens Sunday when they get down to that.
This is maybe the first year in a long, long time, unless I'm missing it, and which is very possible, that you're not going to have a driver that is pulling headlines. Jimmy Johnson, for example.
Right.
There's not a Jimmy Johnson in this race to look at. Even whether it's Sarah Fisher or Danica Patrick, for whatever reason, there's not a driver that's drawing attention because whatever, they're coming from a different circuit, yada, yada, yada. You don't have that. You mentioned it when we were off the air that really there's nothing different this year. All the engines are the same. Everything, the power is the same. The cars are the same, which that to me, that sounds like, are we going to have something like this year's NCAA tournament?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's the stability is like, I think every other year I've gone to Indy, there's been something like that. Even if it was just like 2 years ago when they put the aero screens in, just some wrinkle or something that they had to get used to in the cars or on the track. The track may have changed the surface or something like that. This year, the big, and it's not very big. The biggest thing is there's a little bit more downforce, not much. So is that a sign of stability for IndyCar? Probably. I mean, I guess that's probably the argument that could be made. The one thing that IndyCar has achieved that it never really achieved in any of it, even in its kart salad days and all that, is the parity through the field is remarkable. And, there's really only about 10 drivers that you rule out. They'd have to have a lot of good luck to, good fuel mileage race or something like that to hang in there. There's 20 legitimate drivers that can win this race. And the spectacle that creates, I remember when I first started following the Indy 500 in the late 80s, and if you would have told me there would have been 20 drivers that had a chance to win back in the days when there was maybe 5 at most, I would have been salivating. So it's a good thing to have. The storylines are not quite as dramatic this year, but there are 9 former winners too. So they're reaching a state where open wheel was in the early 90s, where you have a mix of established stars and emerging stars coming into the series.
And then now we've got the new ownership, Roger Penske, and his efforts to raise the not the image of the track. The track has a great image, but just keep raising it up to make sure it's maintains the level of being the greatest, not only the greatest spectacle in racing, but the greatest one-day sporting event in all of sports. It's one that is the biggest attended, and that's saying something, because we're not talking about a big soccer game. We're talking about an amount of people that is larger than most American cities. When you get 300,000 people together, I'd have to do some quick research, but it'd be easier to find out how many cities in America have more than 300,000 people than those that have less.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's only, it's crazy. I mean, the year that they had the 100th running, I believe that 1/10 of the it can't be right, but was it like 1% of the population was at the Speedway?
Well, if you think about it, if you get 300,000 people inside the track on race day, it's the second largest city in the state right then and there. It's bigger than Evansville. It's bigger than Fort Wayne, bigger than the region. So, and you're sucking out. Let's say you took every one of those.
One spot is bigger than that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and if you only drew from, like, say, Marion County, you'd be talking about almost, well, probably more than a quarter of the population of the entire city of Indianapolis would be in that one area. It's remarkable to see. We're really blessed as journalists because we get that full view of the front straightaway where you can really see the magnitude of how many people are there. That never gets old. I mean, that's remarkable. We get to walk the grid as credentialed media, which, there's a lot of cool things we get to do in this business. And a lot of them we tend to get jaded about or we don't do because, after a while, we get jaded basically. It never gets old to walk the grid before the Indianapolis 500. That's a real privilege to be able to do that and to see all the frenzy and be out there. But it's a great Indiana tradition. I'm not originally from Indiana, although I've lived most of my adult life here, and it's the part of me that feels the most Hoosier. Even though I'm originally from Wisconsin, auto racing in general and the Indianapolis 500 in particular is where I feel my Hoosierness the most. And it's a great day to be from Indiana. It's a great celebration, and it almost always lives up to the hype too. I mean, the race itself is always entertaining. So, it's a lot of fun. I know people here don't take it for granted. Certainly, I don't, but hopefully, we never do because it is a wonderful day.
Well, and I talked about this a couple of times this week, and I made light of. I said, man, if you lived in Seymour, the people that reside in Seymour might be the luckiest sports fans on the place of the earth because they reside within 1 hour of two of the greatest sporting events in all of the world. And they have them 1 month apart. You can go to the Kentucky Derby on the first Saturday in May, and then toward the last Sunday in May, you can go to the Indianapolis 500, a combined attended event of over 500,000 people. But more importantly, the TV audiences, the prestige. One of these events is in its 107th year. The other one next year will be in its 150th year. There is no other place on the earth where you have that.
Hey, you're right. And when I was I was a sports editor in Columbus in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I covered both. And I took a job up north where I'm from in Wisconsin. And you do take it for granted because when I got up there, I was always ramped up for those big events. And then, you could throw in the Brickyard at that time was arguably bigger than the 500 in that period. And some other big things that take place around, in Indiana. And I got up to Wisconsin, and other than the Packers, you really didn't have anything remotely to that level. And people in Indiana are really fortunate to be exposed to these big events. And Indianapolis has been aggressive about bringing in even bigger events like the Final Four. So, we're really blessed to have that. And not only that, but our regular day-to-day sports are compelling as well. Obviously, spending my first year full-time covering Indiana University, you see, you get I'm blessed to be able to experience that in person because it's, as IU fans know, it is special. And so there's a lot of special things in Indiana. And
you know what? And I'm glad you pointed it out because now let's add Indiana basketball to that and add Notre Dame football to that.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to exclude others, but Indiana is the one that won 5 national championships. Notre Dame is the one that won however many championships and the Heisman Trophy winners they have.
Right.
When you talk about from a per capita standpoint, cannot imagine another state or place having what Indiana has from a sports perspective.
Yeah, and it's varied too. I mean, of course, a generation, my generation and younger have the Colts. The Pacers, of course, have had their moments over the years as well. So it's a very diverse sports landscape here, and people should be thankful that they have it because it isn't that way. When people live in one place their whole lives, they don't understand that people don't have it that way in other areas. I mean, it's every state has their own sports culture, and but even like over in Illinois, I mean, they don't have something like the Indy 500. They don't have something like the Kentucky Derby. So even though it's a bigger state population with a much bigger city, they don't have that annual event that draws people in and that kind of celebrates the culture of the state that it's in. And so it's pretty cool that Indiana has that, and Kentucky done with the Derby.
I mentioned earlier the Indy 500 doesn't have, there's not a particular driver that's drawing attention this year for being non-Indy reasons. But next year, Sean pointing out Kyle Larson, who is a NASCAR driver, but he's not just a NASCAR driver. This guy is probably considered one of the most talented American drivers in all of auto racing. He spends a ton of time on dirt tracks and racing whatever he can race.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Stewart wanted him so badly for his team and was not able to make that happen. He knows how good of a racer he is. Tony Stewart is one of those kinds of guys who raced everything, who raced dirt, because Indiana is what it is. They have dirt tracks, hard concrete. It doesn't matter. They have every type of racing you can want. And that's why Jeff Gordon was here, and you have Tony Stewart, now Chase Briscoe. But Kyle Larson may be the best opportunity for a crossover driver to have success at Indy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would think so. Of the current NASCAR crop, without doubt. And he's committed to it. And, he said something that NASCAR drivers rarely say yesterday when he spoke to the media. He said that the Indy 500 was the biggest race there is. And most NASCAR drivers don't want to, put Daytona second to Indy. But Kyle Larson gave, big praise to the Indianapolis 500. What was interesting, though, is, Jeff Gordon participated in that press conference as well. And he's the guy who, one of many because of the split among many other things, but that never got a chance. During his prime, it probably wouldn't have been worth going to the Indy 500. It was in a bad state at that point.
I was going to say, he's the one guy that did not really, that could have and probably should have made that attempt. We've seen, Robbie Gordon, one of the Unsers, Bobby Unser. I mean, not Unser, damn it. Andretti.
Robbie Gordon. Times.
Robbie Gordon. Did one of the Bushes try it?
Yes. Kurt Busch did it, I think, 9 years ago.
And actually he had a top 10 finish, did he not?
Yeah, I believe he did. What was interesting to me, though, is that, Jeff Gordon nowadays, he's, the vice chairman of Hendrick Motorsports, of course, the big dog in NASCAR. And, he said that right now, Hendrick would have no interest in forming an IndyCar team, but he left open the possibility that that this gives them their partner. They're partnering with Arrow McLaren. That's who Kyle Larson's going to be racing with. And, he kept the door open to maybe this is our kind of gateway into seeing what this series is all about. And then maybe down the line, it's something that they might consider. Now, that's just talk. I mean, there's nothing serious about that, but that would be fascinating if, some of those teams got involved. Because NASCAR, there was a time when NASCAR lorded over IndyCar, and it's still more popular than IndyCar. I mean, make no mistake about it. But
it's not more popular than the Indianapolis 500.
No, it isn't. And so I like the fact that there's a little bit of a thaw between those two camps in terms of being open to these types of things. I mean, it's important for if you're a motorsports fan in general, if you just like the sport of auto racing, it's good that there's diversity in terms of what the drivers want to do and also in terms of what the teams want to do. So, I'd be shocked if Hendrick ever showed up at Indy. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and suggest it's going to happen someday.
Oh, I would never be shocked if anybody showed up at Indy. I would expect it to be Hendrick because that's the one place he's not conquered.
Now
he's not going to conquer it, but
there's no.
Oh hell yes.
And
he's got the money, and that's the important thing is, and you have to have the money and the financing and the sponsors. And he's the guy he's one of the only guys that could probably pull that off.
Right. Yeah. But so it'll be interesting to see what this Kyle Larson thing does next year in terms of maybe breaking the ice a little bit between the investment that comes into the Indy 500 as well.
Absolutely. Last thing, the PGA going on. Brooks Koepka, did he end up winning the Masters? He did, right? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
No, he faded. He faded. John Rahm won, I think.
Yeah,
so,
that's right. Who's ahead right now? DeChambeau's ahead right now, right?
DeChambeau. And I was like, man, again, another liver atop the leaderboard on one of these majors. And it's great television. And they have to know that. This is great television. Whether you like or hate Bryson DeChambeau or like or hate the live, this is great. There's never been, you could never call golf great, compelling television. This is compelling when you get these guys up there because you know that there's this inside rivalry going on.
Yeah. I mean, maybe this is the case where a split creates more attention than what it did for auto racing back in the 90s, where it decimated open wheel racing at that time. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I do follow golf. I tend to follow the majors, and then kind of my interest slips off after that. But it certainly has created a lot of conversation. It certainly put the PGA in a position where they've had to worry about competition for the first time in a long time. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Obviously, with the financial backing that Liv has, they're not going anywhere for a while. So that will be interesting as well. So,
and the PGA players should be on their knees thanking every one of those guys because they're all making more money now because of that. The PGA was able to magically find a whole bunch of more money and ways to pay these guys. So I think it's BS that they get the crap that they get personally.
Yeah, I don't have much of an opinion on that because I don't follow the sport as much, but we'll see how it shakes out. I mean, it's a weird sport in terms of how it's governed, some traditions versus some new things that they want to do. I know they're going back to the PGA next year goes back to the regular calendar season where they had kind of a split calendar year for the last few years. For me, it's like, where's the Masters? I know when it's going to take place. Where's the US Open and where's the British Open? And that's where my interest usually rises and falls. I'm the worst golfer of all time. So, I don't think I've touched a club in like 20 years, but I do appreciate the sport, and it is remarkable to watch. At its highest level. So we'll see how it shakes out.
And we appreciate you, Todd Golden from CNHI,
right.
and look forward to having you on more, and especially doing some stuff from the track here soon.
Will do. Next time I'm wearing a hat though, because my
brother, you can
not built.
Well, you know what?
Video.
Well, mine's not after I put the hat on. I can tell you that. But welcome to it, brother. Appreciate you. Todd Golden here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got more coming up. Be back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
All right, Jim.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, if you go up tomorrow, let me know, man. I've got no agenda. I would just love to go up there because I haven't been up there yet this year.
All right, I'll let you know.
Any idea like what time you would be thinking?
I'd be mid-morning.
I'm just curious.
I definitely want to get up. I want to get up there before they start qualifying. So I think I want to say they start at noon.
So quals are tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
First day of it. Yeah.
Cool.
So
yep.
I think it's at noon. It might be at 11. Either way, I'll let you know. I mean, I'd leave no later than 10 o'clock to get up there. So
I'll be ready. I'd be ready. I just wanted to make sure that, I had that.
Okay.
Appreciate you, man.
All right. See you later.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. Look forward to having him on more now.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
Oh, yeah, we can talk about anything.
Yeah, you guys knew your NASCAR there.
What you talking about? You think we're rookies here? Whatever, I know whatever you pretty much what I hope I know whatever you want to talk about to a degree.
My fiance was confused. She was like, "Are they talking about NASCAR?" I was like, "He talks about all the sports."
Anything, baby. Whatever's happening, where it's shaking. Well, we have a top NASCAR driver that's from right 25 minutes south of these studios here. Chase Briscoe is from Mitchell, Indiana.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Which is due south of here, 25 minutes.
When I lived in Bloomington, I lived right by that racetrack.
Bloomington?
Yeah, where by Dillman Road, you know that like racetrack over there.
There's only one racetrack, Bloomington Speedway.
Okay, yeah.
It's a dirt track.
Yeah.
Tony Stewart has raced there. Jeff Gordon has raced there. Chase Briscoe has raced there. Then I don't want to talk about the Kensers, who are considered the baddest. You should look them up. They ran those cars. They're considered the baddest asses of all time in that sport. So yeah, there's a lot of history there.
That's cool.
A lot of history of that track, which I pass almost every day. Race there this weekend, I believe.
Awesome. And that's an awesome hat, by the way, but I'm about to count you in. I just realized it said ugly grouper. That's funny. But,
that's where I bet you the ACC meetings were being held.
That's cool. Well, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back on this Friday. Jim Coyle with you here at Indiana Sports Beat Studios, high atop the 18th fairway from the Golf Club Point Studios, that is. Hope you have a nice weekend planned. The weather in and around this area, I know that there are people listening from all over the place, but here it is going to be absolutely gorgeous. Chamber of Commerce weather, for the most part. Today, there's actually a 24% chance of rain, but that's not until the evening, it looks like. So, other than that, this weekend, man, temperatures in the low 70s tomorrow, upper 70s on Sunday. And tomorrow is, as you just heard from Todd, the opening day of qualifications at Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 107th Indianapolis 500. We'll be bringing you coverage of that this spring, as well as everything else that's going on. So, looking forward to bringing you everything that's happening. Indiana looking to finalize their roster spot as the draft gets closer. Who stays, who goes? Does anyone drop out of the draft ahead of time? Does Indiana just wait? I think that they do, unless they just find someone that they feel great about and just make the deal, which that's not an impossibility. There are lots and lots of people that are players that are still in that portal. And there are people that when things change, like Caleb Love, and I'm not suggesting that just because any is or should pursue him, but and yesterday someone was confused, said, well, how can Indiana go after him? The portal's closed. He's already in the portal. He just hasn't found a home yet. He committed to Michigan, but he never he was not accepted into the University of Michigan. Therefore, he's still actively in the portal. Now, had he been accepted and then decommitted, I believe he would have been screwed and had to have sat out. But he was not accepted into school, so he is still officially in the portal. That's how that works. What are you looking forward to this weekend? Who's checking out what? Anyone checking out? We've got lots of golf with the PGA going on. Who's going to win this? Can a liver win the first major? Not only you have Bryson DeChambeau at the top, it's early. He has not begun his second round play. But you also have Dustin Johnson in a 5-way tie for second. So that's second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. But just one stroke back. So you've got two livers already standing tall. And I'm sure there's others. I'm not familiar with all of their names, but I'm kind of looking for some of the more well-known ones that are jumping out. Not seeing any at the moment, like Patrick Reed. Or there's Brooks Koepka. He's tied for 41st. Justin Thomas tied for 31st, but that sounds like they're a mile back. And we're talking a difference of about 4 strokes right now. It's early on. That's going to change. There's Patrick Reed also tied for 41st. So got a lot going on this weekend. Keep track of. It can be a lazy weekend for you. The weather's going to be nice, but you can lay back, watch golf, watch the Indianapolis qualifications, or just chill out, cut the grass. I will be doing all the above, I guess. No grass cutting for me, though. Hey, I can't thank everybody enough on the program today. Of course, Alec Busse from thehoosier.com. Make sure you give him a follow and go to thehoosier.com for complete coverage on IU recruiting and news. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star, as always. Todd Golden from CNHI. Most of RC for filling in for John, the producer, keeping us between the white lines today. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, there is no reason for us to be here. We'll be out giving you coverage from Indianapolis this weekend, most likely. But until Monday, when we're back, this is Jim Coyle saying, I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Did you ever get that